What happens when a little black girl calmly claims the space she paid for, and a grown man can't handle it? The jet bridge smelled like coffee, metal, and the kind of carpet that had seen too many shoes. People were already forming a line, bumping bags, checking phones, sighing as if they were all late for something life-changing. But Jasmine Ellington didn't rush. She just stood quietly, holding her nanny's hand, her little fingers wrapped tightly around a soft leather handle of a tiny white backpack. She was 7, maybe small for her age, but everything about her said calm, focused. She wore a crisp white dress, satin under the lace, with the tiniest pearl buttons running down the back. It wasn't showy. It was something special. A gift from her late grandfather, the man who used to call her Miss Jazz like she was royalty at Sunday brunch. She didn't wear it for attention. She wore it because it reminded her of him. LaToya Green, her nanny, moved with the grace of someone who had walked beside wealth long enough to understand its silence. She wasn't flashy either. Black jeans, cream cardigan, hair tied back neatly. Her job wasn't just to travel with Jasmine. It was to protect her space, make her feel normal in a life that rarely was. They were flying out of San Jose International Airport. Terminal B, Gate 12, headed to Philadelphia, where Jasmine's grandmother had a wide porch, a peach tree, and a fridge, always stocked with those strawberry ice cream cups you had to eat with the wooden spoon. LaToya handed their boarding passes to the gate agent. The woman smiled politely, not warmly, just politely, and barely glanced at Jasmine. That part was normal. People didn't expect a little girl to be flying first class, especially not one wearing barrettes and beads that clicked when she turned her head. They definitely didn't expect her last name to match the side of a Fortune 500 building downtown. Row 2, window seat, LaToya said softly as they stepped into the plane. Jasmine nodded, like she always did when she was listening. She wasn't chatty in public. The cabin had that expensive quiet to it. Not silent, but calm in the way people with money often are when they assume everything will go their way. Overhead bins clicked shut. Suit jackets were folded just right. Someone up front was reading a hardback biography about Elon Musk. Jasmine stepped into the aisle with LaToya behind her. Row 2, her seat, the window seat, the one she'd picked herself when her mom sent her the options. But someone was already in it. He was tall, wide in the shoulders, with a pressed white shirt and a navy blazer. He looked like the kind of man who had opinions about everything, even when nobody asked. His silver watch caught the light as he leaned back and pulled his phone from his pocket. Jasmine looked at him, then looked at the seat. She paused, like she wasn't quite sure what to say. Then she cleared her throat, barely a sound, and spoke. "Excuse me, sir. I think that's my seat." The man barely looked up. "This one?" he asked, gesturing with his thumb. "Nah, I think you've got the one across the aisle. This is for adults." LaToya stepped forward, her voice even. "Sir, her boarding pass says 2A. That's the window seat right there." The man gave a short laugh. "Come on. You really think a kid's supposed to be sitting here by herself?" LaToya blinked. "She's not by herself. I'm with her." "Still," he shrugged, not moving. "Seems like a waste of a first-class seat. Kids don't need this much room." Jasmine didn't say a word. She didn't whine, didn't cry. She just stood there, holding her little backpack with both hands, still wearing that white dress like it meant something, because it did. The flight attendant came over. Her name tag read Carla, and she looked tired in the way people do when they've worked too many double shifts. "Is there a problem?" she asked, looking at LaToya first. "Yes," LaToya said calmly. "This gentleman is sitting in seat 2A. My child here is assigned to that seat." Carla turned to the man. "Sir, may I see your boarding pass?" He sighed, exaggerated, like this whole thing was ruining his day. "Look," he said, "maybe someone made a mistake. Maybe it got switched. But really, you're going to let a kid take a window seat in first class? Come on. Be reasonable." LaToya didn't flinch. She didn't raise her voice. She just pulled out both their boarding passes and held them out. 2A and 2B, she said. Window and aisle. Carla took them, checked, then checked the man's. "Sir," she said slowly, "your ticket is for 4C. That's 2 rows behind, aisle seat." He smirked. "That can't be right. I requested a window." "But that's what your ticket says." He didn't move, didn't even pretend to. Instead, he crossed his arms and gave Jasmine a once-over. Well, maybe someone upgraded her by mistake, he said. But just then, the man in 2C leaned back slightly, watching the whole thing without saying a word. Yet. The man in 2C shifted in his seat, pretending to scroll through emails on his tablet, but his eyes flicked back and forth between Carla, the flight attendant, and Gregory Dalton, the man now refusing to budge from Jasmine's seat. His name hadn't been spoken yet, but LaToya would soon learn it. Carla tried again, her voice firmer this time. "Sir, I'm going to have to ask you to move to your assigned seat." Gregory smiled, but it wasn't friendly. It was the kind of smile that said, "You can't make me." "I'll move in a minute," he said. "Let's just get the kid settled somewhere else. She doesn't care about the window anyway." That's when Jasmine spoke again, soft but certain. "I like the window," she said. "I picked it." She said it like a fact, not a request. And in that second, something shifted. LaToya placed a hand gently on Jasmine's shoulder, then turned to Carla. "Can we speak privately for a moment?" Carla hesitated, nodded, and the two women stepped toward the galley just behind first class. Jasmine stood alone in the aisle now, still in her white dress, still holding her backpack, facing a man who had just decided that she didn't matter. Gregory glanced at her, then looked back at his phone. "You probably don't even understand what's going on," he muttered. "You'll be fine a couple rows back. First class isn't built for kids." Jasmine didn't respond, not because she was scared, because she knew better than to engage with someone trying to provoke her. A few rows back, someone coughed. Another voice whispered, "Is that guy serious right now?" Phones were coming out slowly, one from a woman near the bulkhead, another from the man in 2C, still angled down, still subtle, but recording all the same. Back in the galley, LaToya kept her voice measured. "Look, I know you've got a lot going on, but I'm telling you that man is refusing to let her sit down, and he's making assumptions, ugly ones. My child is assigned to that seat. Her name is Jasmine Ellington. Her mother is Monique Ellington." Carla blinked, clearly recognizing the name. Something changed behind her eyes. "I see," she said. "Let me speak to the captain." LaToya nodded. "Please do. I'll wait right here." Meanwhile, Jasmine was still standing. Two flight attendants were now whispering near the cockpit. Gregory sighed again, loudly this time, like he was the one being wronged. "Can someone get her a juice or something while she waits?" he said. "She looks bored." "I'm fine," Jasmine replied, still calm. "I don't know who you think you are," Gregory muttered, louder this time. "But your nanny's holding things up for everybody." That was the moment LaToya returned. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't even look angry, but she did step slightly in front of Jasmine. "We're not the ones holding things up," she said. "You are." Gregory chuckled, sat back further into the seat. "You know what this is really about, right?" he asked, loud enough for others to hear now. "This is about some little game. You people always trying to make something bigger than it is." LaToya tilted her head. "You people." Gregory didn't even flinch. That's when Carla returned, her face stiffer than before. "Mr. Dalton," she said clearly, "you need to move to your assigned seat now, or the captain will need to address the situation personally." Gregory leaned forward. "The captain? Seriously? All this for a kid who doesn't even know what first class is supposed to be like?" LaToya turned to Jasmine. "Go ahead and sit, baby." Jasmine hesitated for the first time. She looked at the man, then looked at the seat that was rightfully hers. Her chin lifted just slightly, and then she said, "I'll wait till he moves." Not stubborn, not afraid, just firm. A couple of passengers let out audible reactions. Surprised, impressed. The man in 2C finally spoke. "She's got more patience than I would," he said, half to the cabin, half to himself. Gregory rolled his eyes and muttered something under his breath. Carla leaned toward her intercom. Her voice over the speaker was calm, but sharp. "Captain, we're requesting your presence in the cabin." That got everyone's attention. But before the captain stepped out, LaToya quietly reached into her purse and pulled out her phone, dialing just one number. LaToya pressed the phone gently to her ear, never breaking eye contact with Gregory. The dial tone barely rang once before it connected. "Hey, Monique, it's happening again." She said it so plainly, you'd think she was talking about a delayed Uber, not a grown man refusing to let a child sit in her assigned seat. There was a pause, then a calm response from the other end, then silence as LaToya listened and nodded slowly. "Yes, Flight 2708. San Jose to Philadelphia, Gate 12, First Class, Seat 2A. He's refusing to move. She glanced sideways at Jasmine, who stood straight and still, not slouched, not shifting, just watching, quietly. "Yes, ma'am," Latoya said. "I'll stay with her. Thank you." She ended the call, slipped the phone back into her purse, and looked back at Gregory. "I'd suggest you get comfortable back in Bow C while you still have the choice," she said softly. Gregory scoffed. "Who do you think you just called? The president?" "No," Latoya replied. "Someone with a much faster response time." Carla, the flight attendant, looked up as the cockpit door opened. Captain Jansen, tall, mixed race, maybe in his mid-40s, with the posture of someone who knew how to keep calm under real pressure, stepped out. His gaze swept across the scene quickly. He didn't need an explanation. "Mr. Dalton," he said, direct but polite. "Can I speak with you at the front of the aircraft?" Gregory huffed. "Is this really necessary?" "Yes," the captain said. "It is." He stood up slowly, brushing invisible lint off his pants like he was doing the cabin a favor. Passengers shifted. A few angled their phones slightly higher. Still no one shouted. No chaos. Just that thick tension that fills the space when someone is being watched and doesn't realize how many people are really looking. Gregory walked to the front with the captain. Jasmine finally sat down in her seat. Latoya reached over and fastened her seatbelt, like nothing had happened. Jasmine looked out the window. She didn't smile. She didn't need to. She just looked. The man in 2C leaned closer. "You handled that like a pro, little lady." Jasmine turned to him and said, "Thank you, sir," just like her mother taught her. At the front, Gregory's voice could be heard in bits and pieces. He wasn't yelling, but his tone had shifted. Desperation had crept in. "Don't see why I have to be the one overreacting. It's just a kid." Then the captain's voice, low, steady, final. "We have clear documentation. We can't allow any passenger to override seat assignments based on personal preference. This is not negotiable." Gregory returned, still fuming, but the seat was gone now. Jasmine was in it, legs swinging gently above the floor. He stood in the aisle beside row 2. "I could sue," he muttered, half to himself, half to whoever would listen. "You don't know who I am." Latoya leaned just slightly toward him. "She's Ellington. That's who she is." That did it. Gregory's eyes widened. It landed. Not just the name, but the realization. He wasn't the most powerful person on the plane anymore. Carla stepped forward. "Sir, please take your assigned seat now." Gregory started walking back toward row 4, but before he reached it, the intercom dinged again. "Ladies and gentlemen," Captain Jansen's voice came through the speakers. "Due to a delay involving a seating dispute, we'll be momentarily grounded while the situation is fully reviewed. We appreciate your patience." The entire cabin exhaled. Someone said, "Good," loud enough to be heard. Someone else clapped, just once. Gregory spun around. "This is ridiculous," he snapped. "You're grounding the whole plane over this?" But nobody answered him, not even Carla. Jasmine looked out the window again, her chin resting on her palm now. Latoya pulled out a small container of cocoa butter from her purse and rubbed it gently into Jasmine's hands. "You okay?" she whispered. Jasmine nodded once. "I just wanted to see the clouds." Latoya smiled. "You will. Just a little longer." But as Gregory reached his seat, a new voice entered the mix. Deeper, calmer, and coming from the back of the plane where another passenger had just stood up with his phone in hand. The voice came from a man near row 6. He was tall, black, mid-30s, sharp goatee, and wore a forest green sweater and dark jeans. Nothing flashy, but his voice was the kind that made people pause. Not because it was loud, because it was steady. "I got the whole thing," he said, raising his phone slightly, from the moment the girl asked politely for her seat. The cabin shifted again. Heads turned. Gregory froze. The man nodded slowly. "And let me tell you something. That child did everything right. Everything. And she got treated like she didn't belong here." Another passenger, a woman in business attire a few rows up, raised her voice. "Same here. I was recording from row 3. Carla, the flight attendant, looked to the captain, who was now standing just behind her again. He raised an eyebrow and asked plainly, "Mr. Dalton, would you like to voluntarily deplane, or should we make it official?" Gregory's mouth opened, closed, then opened again. You people are overreacting. I was just trying to sit down. No, said the man in green. You were trying to make a little black girl feel small, but you picked the wrong flight. Gregory threw his hands up. This is insane. The captain nodded once. I'll take that as a refusal to comply. He turned to Carla. We're removing the passenger. Get ground security ready. Jasmine watched all this from her seat, still quiet, still swinging her legs just slightly. She looked at LaToya and asked, Can we call Mama now? LaToya pulled out her phone. We already did, baby. In a quiet corner of an office building 3,000 miles away, Monique Ellington sat at her desk in Palo Alto. She wasn't wearing a power suit. She didn't need to. A soft turtleneck, gold hoop earrings, and a sharp mind were all she ever needed. Her phone buzzed, not just with LaToya's earlier call, but now with messages. The first came from Sandra Lee, VP of Customer Operations at the airline. Ms. Ellington, just saw the passenger manifest. We're taking care of it. Captain already grounded the flight. I'll call you shortly. Then another. Board video is circulating on social media. Looks like multiple passengers filmed it. We're preparing a public statement in case this goes viral. Monique didn't flinch. She simply typed back, Don't prepare, apologize, directly, and make sure my daughter gets to Philly comfortably. Back on the plane, 2 airport security officers boarded quietly. No yelling, no drama. Just a tap on Gregory's shoulder. Sir, we need you to come with us. He sputtered. Are you serious? You're siding with them? Over a child? One of the officers replied, We're siding with the law, sir, and seat assignments. It took only a minute. He grabbed his bag from the overhead bin with jerky movements and stormed toward the door, muttering to himself. But no one stopped him. No one defended him. Not one person on that plane had anything to say in his favor. Jasmine turned back to the window. LaToya sat down beside her, finally breathing a little deeper. Carla returned to them a few minutes later. Would she like a drink or snack before takeoff? She asked gently. LaToya smiled. You should ask her. Carla knelt down slightly. Hi, Jasmine. Can I get you anything? Apple juice? Cookies? Jasmine looked thoughtful. Can I have both? Absolutely. Carla smiled. Not the polite kind. The real kind. The plane doors closed. The captain returned to the cockpit. The engines began to hum. And finally, Jasmine leaned back in her seat and whispered, I really like this window. LaToya smiled and tucked a small pink blanket around her legs. But as the plane pulled away from the gate, the man in green was already uploading the video. And it wouldn't take long before the whole country knew what had happened on Flight 2708. The video hit the internet before the plane even left the ground. It started on 1 Instagram story, then 2. By the time they were halfway into the flight over the Midwest, it had already been clipped, edited, captioned, and reposted across every platform you could name. The man in green, Andre Timmons, a real estate investor from Oakland, had uploaded his version with a simple caption. Little black girl politely asks for her seat. Grown man refuses. Flight is grounded. Captain removes him. Whole thing is on tape. Don't ever tell me racism is over. By the time the plane reached cruising altitude, the post had crossed 80,000 shares. Jasmine sat peacefully, sipping apple juice and flipping through a picture book she had packed herself. LaToya rested her eyes, head tilted slightly back, hands still resting on the armrest between them. But the internet was wide awake. Twitter hashtags took shape quickly. Let her sit and mark Flight 2708, Jasmine, Ellington. People dissected every second of the videos. The way Jasmine stood, quiet but firm. The way Gregory Dalton had said, you people, without even blinking. The way LaToya never once lost her cool. The calm of the captain. The solidarity from passengers who'd had enough. Newsrooms picked it up within the hour. By the time they landed in Philadelphia, there were 2 local reporters waiting at the gate. They didn't push. They didn't yell. But one snapped a photo from a respectful distance. Jasmine walking off the plane, still wearing her white dress, still holding her tiny backpack. LaToya just behind her. Monique was already on the phone with her attorney by then. Not to sue, not yet, but to document it. It's not about punishment, she said. It's about memory. My daughter will grow up knowing exactly what she did right, and that she had every right to that seat. By the next morning, Gregory Dalton's name had been released. The airline had issued a formal apology. Not just a generic PR statement, but a direct one addressed to Jasmine and her family. We failed to uphold the most basic standard, respecting the dignity of every passenger, especially our youngest. We sincerely apologize to Miss Jasmine Ellington and her guardian for the treatment they experienced. But apologies don't erase footage. Clips of Gregory's face were now etched into online memory, not just for what he said, but for what he refused to see. A child, a seat, a name. Monique posted once, just once, a single photo of Jasmine in her white dress, standing by the window with a soft smile, holding a plastic cup of apple juice. Her caption read, "She asked politely, she waited patiently, she stood her ground, she sat in her seat." Some called it grace, others called it power, but it was Jasmine's moment, and she never raised her voice. LaToya received hundreds of messages, some praising her calm, others angry she hadn't snapped back at Gregory. But she didn't reply to most. She just told people the truth. "I don't need to scream to protect her. I just need to stand beside her and make sure the world sees her." That night, in a guest room in Philadelphia, filled with the smell of sweet tea and linen spray, Jasmine curled up in bed and whispered to her grandmother, "I sat in my seat, Grandma. He tried to take it, but I waited. And I sat down." Her grandmother tucked the covers tighter around her and kissed her forehead. "You were born for your seat, baby," she said. "Don't let anybody try to talk you out of it." But while Jasmine drifted off to sleep, millions of people were still wide awake, sharing, commenting, arguing, learning, and watching a 7-year-old girl teach them something grown folks still hadn't figured out. By midday, Jasmine Ellington had become a name people were debating at work, on morning shows, and in group chats around the country. News anchors used words like graceful, composed, well-behaved. Some of it was praise. Some of it missed the point entirely. Every outlet wanted the exclusive. Who was the girl in the white dress? Was this a misunderstanding or something deeper? Had it been blown out of proportion? Or had it exposed something many just didn't want to see? The video was dissected frame by frame. The moment Jasmine said, "I picked it," the still image of her standing in the aisle with her tiny backpack. The look on Gregory Dalton's face when he realized he'd misjudged the entire situation. But while others tried to spin it into a headline, the Ellington family never fought for attention. Monique wasn't interested in interviews. She told her PR team, "No angles, no press tour, just facts." Still, the story took on a life of its own. Educators used it in classrooms to talk about race, privilege, and respect. Podcasts broke it down with experts on power dynamics and childhood agency. Comment sections were a mess, some full of support, others full of denial. One post said, "It's just a seat. Why are we making this about race?" And someone replied, "Because it was never just a seat to begin with." Jasmine wasn't on social media. She was too young. She didn't see the arguments or the edits of her photo with quotes over it, but her grandmother did. She read every headline out loud to her slowly, clearly. Let her hear it. Not so she'd feel famous, but so she'd understand the story belonged to her, not the world. "What's entitlement mean?" Jasmine asked one afternoon as they were watering the tomatoes out back. Her grandmother paused. "It means thinking something is yours just because you want it, not because you earned it or deserve it." Jasmine thought for a second. "Like how he thought my seat was his?" "Exactly," her grandmother nodded. Jasmine looked at the soil, then back at her grandmother. "But I had the ticket." "You did, baby, and you kept it." Meanwhile, Gregory Dalton disappeared from the public eye. His company issued a vague statement distancing itself from his actions. He deactivated his accounts. The videos stayed up because the truth had already landed, and it wasn't going anywhere. The Ellington family received thousands of letters, some from parents of little black girls who'd seen themselves in Jasmine, some from people who admitted, quietly, anonymously, that they'd never thought about how much space they took up, or how quickly they questioned who belonged. One letter came from a 62-year-old woman in Idaho. She wrote, "When I saw that child waiting for her seat, something broke in me. I realized I'd been Gregory too many times in my life. I'm sorry. I'll do better." Monique framed that one, not for public display, but for Jasmine's room when she was older. Back at school in Palo Alto weeks later, Jasmine returned to her normal routine: reading hour, recess, piano lessons. Most of the kids didn't mention the flight. Their parents had seen it, but they didn't know how to explain it. Except one little girl, Avery Jenkins, who walked up to Jasmine during snack break with a juice box in hand. "You were on TV," she said, squinting. Jasmine shrugged. "Kind of. My mom said you were brave." Jasmine looked down at her crackers. "I was just waiting for my seat." And that was that. They sat together the rest of lunch, but the image of Jasmine sitting by the plane window, hands folded over her lap, would keep showing up. Not because she demanded space, but because she reminded us what it means to quietly hold it. The thing about Jasmine Ellington's story isn't just that it happened, it's that it happens every day. Not always on airplanes, not always with cameras rolling, but in classrooms, stores, waiting rooms, parks. Little black girls told they're too young, too much, too loud, or not quite right for the space they're already standing in. Told without words sometimes, with a look, a sigh, a pause that lasts just a second too long. That's why this story mattered, because for once the world saw it, all of it, beginning to end. The way Jasmine stood, the way Gregory dismissed her, the way LaToya didn't flinch, the way silence spoke louder than shouting ever could. It held up a mirror, not just to Gregory, to all of us, to every person who's ever assumed someone didn't belong just because they weren't used to seeing them there, to every gatekeeper, every accidental oversight, every casual dismissal passed off as a misunderstanding, and to every kid who's ever looked down at their shoes instead of speaking up, because they were taught early that respect and being respected aren't always the same thing. Jasmine wasn't just polite, she was powerful. Not because she yelled, because she didn't have to. She knew her name, she knew her seat, and she waited for the world to catch up. That's a kind of strength adults rarely manage. So here's the question. What seat are you sitting in that doesn't belong to you? What space have you taken, even quietly, that you never questioned? And maybe more importantly, when the time comes, will you give it back? Or will it take a child in a white dress to remind you who it really belonged to in the first place? If this story made you pause, even just for a second, then do something with that feeling. Talk to someone about it. Teach your kids. Call it out when it happens. Even if it's awkward, even if it's not your place. Because Jasmine claimed hers, and all she did was ask.